I'm a little bit rusty. I was just fucking talking about how fucking beautiful it is to finally watch this Suns team do something that we've just been waiting so long as a community to do. It's one of those things that uh, I have watched personally over 250 games the last 5 years prior to this year. The number of games that I had to watch of Tyler Eulis, Mike James, Dragon Bender, Marquise Chris, 39-year-old Jamal Crawford, it was painful. It was fucking painful. And for this team to turn it around to this degree is just absolutely it's beautiful. It's something that the Suns community has long since deserved. It's one of those things where I cannot believe that we have made the single season turnaround that we have. It's absolutely insane, and uh, I cannot overstate my gratitude, as well as just the fact that this is one of the greatest NBA turnarounds I feel like I've seen in forever, especially for a team that isn't necessarily adding a new future All Star in the way that like the 2010 OKC Thunder were with Westbrook and Harden and KD. But it's fucking beautiful. Um, and the Jazz mollywop the Kings tonight. They're going to be on fire Friday. Yeah, it's one of those things where even if we lose that game, I'm on cloud nine right now. One of the things that I was talking about, while apparently my mic was muted, so that's great. Like I said, a little bit rusty. It's been a few months. That's why I wanted to do this before the playoffs. But one of the things that just really, really, really fucking is I just cannot fucking believe coming into this season. I was predicting that the Suns would be the sixth seed, maybe the fifth seed. I was saying I'll be happy with the playoff spot, and if we can make a series competitive, that's what I was saying coming into this season. We just secured a sixth seed. If we lose every single game the rest of this year, and everybody else wins games, we are still the fucking sixth seed. At this point we are a first round exit would be a disappointment, and I cannot fucking believe that we are here. It has been the confirmation of everything that we have possibly believed in for the individual Suns players. It's been a confirmation that no, DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges and Devin Booker are not actually bad players. They just weren't surrounded by legitimate players. Like, they weren't surrounded by a legitimate team. They had Mike James and Tyler Eulis starting at point guard, and they had fucking Dragon Bender and Alex Len getting heavy postmen. It's like a fucking course they're not going to be good. And what I was going on, what I was really passionately going on during the time in which my mic was muted. Apologies for that again. It's just the fact that Chris Paul, his effect on this team cannot be overstated. We saw that to the 10th degree tonight, and it's one of those things where I've always been a big believer that you can't really judge a player based especially off volume stats. That stats don't really capture the nuances of the game. But I have not seen a player that more personifies that in the modern NBA than Chris motherfucking Paul. It is ridiculous the effect that this man can have on our offense, even when he is not scoring points. Like it's fucking absurd. It's one of those things where you look up and he has 3 points at halftime, 3 points and 7 assists. Like, it was okay. He was generating offense. He was generating good looks. But you were just wondering, like, is he really gonna get us to that point tonight? And of fucking course he did. Of fucking course he did, because he has all season long. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's one of those things where you look at his scoring numbers and you would think like Norman Powell this year is averaging like 19 a game on 60% true shooting. Like, it's at least equivalent to Chris Paul statistics. But if you tell me that Norman Powell is on the same level score of Chris Paul, I will never listen to your basketball opinions ever again. Because it's one of those things where Chris Paul's effect is just truly shown in those moments where the offense is stalling, no matter the looks that he's getting for the guys, and he has to go get a bucket. And in those moments, he fucking shows out as one of the best individual players to get a shot at any moment in the NBA. I mean, it showed up in two different instances tonight. Whether it was that third quarter stretch with both Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton went really cold. Devin Booker was leaving a couple shots really short. He airballed and then barely nicked the rim on one. Ayton was having everything rim out. And what did Chris Paul do? He fucking turned around and went 7 straight on his own. And then in the fourth quarter, when our offense stalled a little bit and Clippers really, really began to dig in on defense, what did he do? He went on another single individual stretch for the Phoenix Suns. His effect on this team cannot be overstated. He consistently raises the active production on the floor at every moment he's on the floor. It's shocking. It's one of those things where I used to talk about this on my streams, especially early on in the season, where he's somebody who's not just passing to the open guy, but he is passing guys open. That is the biggest difference between him and Rubio in terms of passing. Rubio was absolutely elite at finding the open guy, and we saw that last year. But Chris Paul isn't just finding the open guy. He does that too, but he is passing guys open. It is the ball movement, the off-ball motion, it is all elite when Chris Paul's on the floor, and when everybody else is not hitting those shots and we need to go get a bucket, Chris fucking Paul is there to get a bucket. I don't think that he actually has any legitimate shot at MVP, but I would love to see his name at least in the conversation. And we are at least kind of seeing that from a national media perspective. So it's definitely one of those things. It's one of those things where I do think Chris Paul's effect on this team can be overstated by individuals. They think he is the only reason that we're a playoff team. I think we'd still at least be in the play-in games without Chris Paul. Probably, I would like to think like 7-8 seed. But his turnaround of this team, him and Jay Crowder, after the years that we've gone through, man, it's a thing of fucking beauty. And I don't care if Chris Paul left tomorrow. I don't care if Chris Paul never says a positive thing about Phoenix after he leaves. He will always and forever be one of my favorite players solely based off this season. We are fucking blessed to have this man on this team. And the situation is that we clearly look like a better supporting cast than OKC last year. And that was an OKC team that took the Houston Rockets to 7 games. Like, they made that a fucking series. And biasedly, I think that we look clearly superior to the 2019-2020 Oklahoma City Thunder. So like it's just one of those things. I absolutely love it. We fucking made it, man. We fucking made it. I just have to reiterate, I have watched no less than 250 games over the last 5 years. I have seen no less than 50 20-plus point blowout games over the last 5 years where I was watching the games just to watch the D-Book moments or just to watch the Ayton moments. And I'm a big TJ Warren fan, or just to watch the TJ Warren minutes. And the fact that we aren't just a good team, we aren't just a team making the playoffs, but we just secured a top 6 seed, 10 games left, it's mind-blowing, and it's a goddamn blessing. We went from praying to make it to the play-in to not even needing it. We could lose every single game, and we could still make the 6th seed. It's just like, the words coming out of my mouth just doesn't sound correct. Like, I almost find it difficult believing what I am saying. Like, I cannot fucking believe it. I was told this was a cleavage stream. Sorry about that, dog. I'm sadly a little bit flat chested. Look at OKC this year. I don't think we become trash when CP3 eventually leaves. Well, and you also have to remember that OKC kind of purposely traded away their good assets. I mean, Chris Paul left, and that was obviously their most significant loss, but they also lost a handful of other players that were pretty instrumental to the run that they had last year. I mean, I think the only 3 guys that are getting more than 15 minutes that were on the roster last year, who SGA, Dort, and Basley. So it's one of those things. Bonga off to horny jail. But I fucking love this game. And honestly, the fact that it happened against the Clippers Kind of makes me fucking happy. I'll be honest, like Kawhi Leonard is one of my favorite players in the NBA. I think he personifies the exact kind of basketball that I love. He's elite in the mid range, and he's one of those people who doesn't just go to the mid range when it's open, but he utilizes the mid range not only to open up drives and 3-point shots for himself, but also to generate a multi-layer offense for his team, which we saw be extremely successful in the Raptors. But God, I fucking hate the Clippers this year, dude. I that team is so goddamn annoying, and so doing it against the Clippers when Kawhi wasn't there is just, it's fucking beautiful. It is fucking beautiful. So I've missed a lot on stream. Y'all haven't heard my opinions on a lot. I missed the whole Frank Kaminsky starting section of the season. And on Frank tonight, I absolutely love what I'm seeing out of him, especially with Saric out. It's one of those things where Saric was obviously incredibly good pre-All-Star break, but he's really kind of started to struggle. And when he struggles, you begin to see the flaws in his game, especially as a center. Even in the modern NBA, there are still plenty of 7-foot centers who can penalize you for playing small ball in the post. And Saric, once we get to the playoffs, kind of scares me as our backup center. I think against specific teams like the Clippers, I think he'll be fucking great because he's somebody who is not oversized, can play against small ball lineups, but can also rebound and penalize people in the post. But when we're playing a team like the Lakers, who are running a 3-big rotation of AD, Drummond, and Marc Gasol, like, that means there will be heavy center minutes that will be against a very good low-post center. Even if Drummond's not a prototypical back-to-the-basket, high-efficiency scorer, he's still somebody that I don't love the matchup against Saric. And that's kind of made me nervous coming into this postseason, especially once we go to potential second round matchups and conference final matchups. And so I love what I'm seeing out of Kaminsky. I really am. And I'm not entirely sure how many minutes he'll actually get in the playoffs. But the thing that I'm loving the most is the defensive intensity that we're seeing out of him. We know that he can get hot. If you've watched the Suns the last 2 seasons, you know that he can heat up. I think last year he had that like 20-something point first quarter. Like he can get fucking red hot really quickly. That's nothing new, and it was absolutely massive for us at the end of the second quarter when our team went cold. But the thing that I'm really loving out of Kaminsky is he's playing the best defense of his career right now. And that's not to say he's a good defender. The best defense of his career is still not great, but he's not somebody that is getting absolutely killed on switches. He's not somebody that teams are just murdering off of drives, especially in the early rotations that we run that allow us to be actually a decent 3-point defending team. And so Kaminsky, my worry with him has always been that he's not a good defender, and he's somebody that really doesn't step over well and contest, especially on drives. And tonight, as well as the next games, he did a fantastic job at early rotating and getting solid contests. He's still going to give up points. He's not going to make any defensive highlight plays. He's not somebody that we can run for heavy minutes in the playoffs. But it is nice to know that if the Lakers go with Marc Gasol, that we don't have to necessarily worry about them just dumping it down to Marc Gasol 3 feet from the basket off of a drive from LeBron, and him just laying it in over Saric. I mean, we've seen that multiple times over the last 20 or so games when it comes to Saric. And Kaminsky will be there to at least contest and has the body size to maintain position even when he gets secured in the post. So I love what I saw out of Kaminsky. Obviously, that hot stretch that he had in the second quarter was absolutely massive for our offense. But it's the defense actually that has me hopeful if Kaminsky ends up getting playoff minutes especially against a new team that have bigger post players. Cam Johnson's whack shooting is concerning this late in the season. I disagree. It's one of those things where I really don't think what I'm about to say is let me explain before you react. Where Cam Johnson is an I appreciate the follow, by the way. Cam Johnson is a individual game streaky shooter, but I don't believe he is a momentum from game to game shooter. I mean, we saw this all throughout his rookie year, where one game he would be 3 or 4, 4 or 5 from 3, and the next game he'd go 0 4. Then the next game he'd shoot well, and then 2 games later he'd shoot poorly. He's not necessarily a guy like Javon Carter, where Javon Carter is a momentum-based shooter. When his shots are falling, his confidence increases. He takes better shots. Javon Carter is the personification of a streaky shooter, especially a streaky momentum shooter, where if he's shooting well in one game, there's a decent chance that'll translate to the next game. And if he's in a cold stretch like we saw at the beginning of the season, it's a little bit hard for him to get out of it. Cam Johnson, I don't really feel that way. And so it's one of those things where I understand the concerns because he hasn't shot well recently. But in the same way that we saw in the next game, I think that Cam needs to cut down when he's cold. I'm not a big fan of the early shot clock threes, as well as the step back that he did against the Knicks last night. But when it comes to just kick out 3-point shooter, I couldn't give less of a shit if he was 0 for 4 the game before or if he was 4 for 4. So I'm really not that worried about Cam. Guys like D-Book and Javon and even Mikhail a little bit. I could understand the worry if they were in a cold stretch like Cam. But I want Cam shooting that thing, even if he had a rough game before. So I'm personally not too worried about him. I hope Cam gets his shit together before the playoffs. We need him. I agree. But you also have to remember that we now have Torrey Craig as well. And so I've always said, or I was saying earlier in this season, that we needed 2 of the 3 guys to show up, Mikhail, Cam, and Jay. If we had 2 of those 3 guys play well in a game, it was going to be a fucking tough game for the opponent to beat us. And now we have 4 options. And if 2 of those 4 are hitting on any given night, we're going to be a tough team to beat. And obviously, Torrey Craig is not the 3-point shooter that Cam, Mikhail, and Jay are. But we've seen plenty of nights where Torrey Craig will have 12 points on 2 of 4 3-point shooting. Like, he can absolutely show up in that spot that we need, where we just need one more shooter to show up. So I obviously, Cam shooting well raises our ceiling. Obviously, I want Cam playing well. Obviously, it's super impactful to how far we can go. If we're going to go to the Western Conference Finals, if we're going to go to the finals, yeah, we'll need Cam Johnson to show up big. But in the first round series, potentially a second round series, if at least 2 of the 4 are playing well, then I think that we have enough elsewhere to compete, and 2 of the 4 showing up is enough to stretch out the defense and really allow for Chris Paul and Devin Booker to eat in the mid-range, as well as really opening up the pick and roll for Saric and Ayton. So it's one of those things where I understand the worries. I completely do. But you have to remember, we just beat the Clippers even without Kawhi, and the Knicks in 2 bad Cam Johnson shooting games. Even if Cam hit 3 in a row, I think he still finished 3 of 11 from 3 last game. So I get it. I 100% get it, especially with Jay Crowder being out. It can feel like when Cam goes cold, our offense goes cold. But with those 4 guys, I trust it. Him and Book, it's been hard to watch him force shots lately. I definitely understand that sentiment. However, I really don't mind Book being this aggressive. He's clearly ramping up his offensive aggressiveness as we head into the playoffs. And the Timeline podcast, if y'all don't listen to that, hell of a podcast, hell of a Suns podcast. Very much recommend you looking it up on Spotify or Apple Music. But one of the things that they were talking about recently that I heavily agree with is the fact that Devin Booker is kind of when he is decisive, he's great, and when he's not decisive, it can lead to a lot of interesting decisions. It can lead to turnovers. It can lead to sloppy isolations that we see, where he's not necessarily looking for the pass or the bucket, but he's kind of looking for both. And what we've seen in the last few games is decisive D-Book, where he's saying, I'm getting the bucket at this spot, try to stop me. And he hasn't shot great. I actually think he was 14-26 in the Knicks game. I don't know what he ended up finishing as today, but it's just one of those things where D Book's offensive ceiling on any given night is just so ridiculous. If you've been watching the Suns the last few years and watching him have that mentality of I'm gonna get a bucket right now, I fucking love it. I fucking love it. So I understand. Again, I understand the concerns. He does force shots, but also it's kind of that thing where like D Book can make those forced shots. I mean, we saw it tonight where he had that little step back along the baseline knockdown jumper. I mean, we saw it in the 76er game. He was ice cold, and he took the hardest shot of the game and iced the game with it. So I understand the concerns, but you got to remember, Book's a fucking bucket. He's been a bucket, and he will be a bucket. So Book, I'm really not concerned about either. Sarge needs to figure out how he's rolling in. I agree. I really kind of hope that Sarge, his downtrend the last few games has been predicated on the fact that he has been injured. We don't know anything about the injury. So it's one of those things where he's looked bad. There's no other way to put it. But there is the hope that there's clearly a delineation between how he played pre-All-Star game and post-All-Star game. Part of it could just be teams kind of figuring out how we're using him, especially against smaller opponents, getting him switched on to the post, as well as learning how to attack him. But it's one of those things where he clearly was just so fucking good at the beginning of the season that I have faith. And I still want some heavy Sarge minutes. I mean, if it's going bad, if they're just attacking him, if he can't knock down his open shots, then we have a lot of options. Again, we literally have Mikal, Cam, Jay Crowder, and now Torrey Craig. And so it's one of those things where, again, kind of similar to Cam, where obviously Sarge raises our ceiling, but I don't know how much he can really hurt us. That being said, if this recent 2-game stretch from Kaminsky on defense is kind of a fluke, and he starts getting killed on drives again, yeah, we'll need Sarge. We will fucking need Sarge. Sarge is he's a better defender, especially contested than Kaminsky has been for his career. But over the last few games, it's kind of swapped, where Kaminsky is giving us those contests that we need, whereas Sarge maybe necessarily isn't. Too late, I am reacting. Our offense works 20 times better when he is hitting from the outside. I mean, I definitely agree, and our offense is heavily predicated, especially on our spacing, which opens up the driving lanes as well as the cutting lanes for Mikal. It's one of those things where really, if I want to see something out of Cam coming into the postseason, what I'd really like to see out of him is putting it on the floor. And we saw it early in tonight's game once. Some games it's there and some games it's not, where he will put it on the floor and attack the basket and sometimes pull up for those little 18-footers around the elbow. So I definitely want to see Cam kind of lean into that. Especially if the shot's not falling. If we want him to be effective coming to the postseason, if the shot continues to not fall, which again I'm not really worried about, then we will need that. But that is far from guarantee. Additionally, somebody that I just really want to touch on, somebody that I just fucking it's been 11 years, all of us right now. That's goofy. One of the things that I really want to touch on this post-game stream, is how much I fucking love Campaign. I fucking love Campaign. It's one of those things where I will be go through my comment history on Reddit. I'm sure that you will likely end up seeing at least one negative comment from me about Campaign when we signed him. Back before the bubble last year. It was very much like, really, that's the guy we're going with? We can't go with a younger player. But Campaign's proven me wrong and shut me the fuck up. His hot start to this game was absolutely massive for us, getting out in the lead that we maintained throughout the entirety of the game. However, the thing that I love about Campaign is his ability to penetrate and the fact that he's got such underrated passing. It really is fantastic. Some of the looks that he can generate for the guys, whether it's the pick and roller or whether it's the kickouts to the shooter. There was one play tonight where he caught it in the corner, he pump faked, the guy went for it, he drove quickly along the baseline. Two guys helped over down on him, and he jumped, and rather than just kicking out for the easy kick out corner three, he whipped it around with his left hand to a wide open McHale. McHale ended up missing the shot. But that's just one of those things where that's an incredible pass. And having a guy come off the bench who can knock down threes, who can attack the basket, is fucking fast. He is fucking fast. And can generate great looks for his teammates. He is so important to this team. Every single minute that Chris Paul is not on the floor, Cam Payne is one of the 2 or 3 most important players on the Phoenix Suns. He is the catalyst for our offense when Chris Paul is off the floor and Devin Booker is not getting shots for himself, or Devin Booker's off the floor as well. I have loved what I've seen from Cam Payne this year, and this game was the absolute personification of it. And I'm calling it now. Absolutely hold me to this. Cam Payne will have one massive playoff game where he goes for 20-5, 20-7, and just wins us the game. He will have at least one of those. I guarantee it. Whether we lose in the first round, whether we make it to the Western Conference Finals or the Finals, I guarantee it. Cam Payne will have at least one massive game for us. Absolutely massive signing for us. Extremely, extremely underrated. And what he does for our offense when Chris Paul's off the floor is just, it's fucking beautiful. CP3 is going to keep making Cam better too. I absolutely love it. I mean, it's one of those things where, we saw flashes of the passing in the bubble last year, but I don't really remember Cam Payne being this good of a creator for other people last year. I feel like he is just one of those people who at this point consistently generates good looks. It's not that he's just passing to the open guy again, but he is generally legitimately creating good looks for his teammates. I mean, there's back-to-back plays where he pick and rolled with Kaminsky, and on one of them he ended up feeding it to the corner, and one of them he fed Kaminsky right in the pocket 30 feet from the basket. I mean, his passing is significantly underrated, and that paired with his fucking blinding speed, it's a beautiful combination, and he's extremely, extremely important for this team, especially come playoff time. Where have you been, brother? Happy you are back. I appreciate y'all for checking out the stream. Sadly, I have been working some pretty insane hours recently, starting back in January, as well as getting a girlfriend. So between those two things, I've been a bit preoccupied with my time. Don't you worry, I've still been watching Suns games. But many times it's kind of been on the background while I work, or I'll be watching it with my girls, so I don't really hop on stream and take up an hour of our time. But I will be streaming during the playoffs, and I'm absolutely looking forward to it, getting warmed back up to it. And I'm glad I did it, because, this first stream I had my mic muted for a good 10 minutes. So it's good to be back, and it's good to just be talking to y'all again, man. It's fucking wonderful. This has been a hell of a year, and it's one of those things where it always felt a little dumb to be a Suns fan. I am somebody who is not from Phoenix, and I had never been to Phoenix before until this last December when I flew into Phoenix to watch the Suns play the Rockets. And it's one of those things where, not being a local who watches 50-plus games a year of the worst team in the NBA, it always looked a little bit questionable. And I just feel vindicated as a fan. I've been a Suns fan since the early 2000s. I actually chose the Suns because of Joe Johnson back in 2004, being from Arkansas, and Joe Johnson being an Arkansas basketball player. But it's just one of those things where I feel vindicated, and it's fucking great. And I have a lot of Dallas Mavericks friends. A lot of my buddies are from the Dallas area, and it's great to talk shit. I have had to hear so much shit from those guys over the last few years, and it's beautiful being able to talk shit back now. But back to the game tonight. It definitely, there were a lot of At this point in the season, we kind of know what we've got. There are individual takeaways that we can have, like the Kaminsky playing well on defense. But one thing that I haven't really ever touched on the stream, because I haven't streamed recently, and that again showed its face tonight, is the fact that Torrey Craig was a fucking hell of a signing. A hell of a signing. It was absolutely. I still cannot believe we got that man for free. The defensive versatility that he brings to this team cannot be overstated. I honestly am okay with when teams go small. When the Clippers throw out Batum at center, throw Torrey Craig in there in big playoff minutes. When we're playing teams like the Lakers with LeBron or the Clippers with Kawhi or even the Nets with KD, Craig is somebody I feel relatively confident on in guarding them for 10 to 15 minutes a night. He is our second best option behind maybe Jay Crowder. And that's not to take a jab at Mikal. Mikal's obviously a great defender, but Mikal's one weakness on defense are kind of faster, stronger guys who are really good at penetrating. We saw it a little bit tonight with PG, but he still did a very good job on PG. But we've seen it throughout the season where guys who can get into the lane are kind of Mikal's weakness. And so do I trust Mikal for 30 minutes a night on LeBron, on Kawhi, on KD? I might rather have Jay on him. I really might. Mikal is one of the best off-ball defenders in the entire NBA. So having a big body like Jay, who is a proven defender against those level guys, I mean, he was the primary defender. People forget about this. Jay Crowder was Giannis's primary defender in the upset last year against the Bucks for the Heat. Bam was obviously huge. Jimmy Butler was huge. But Jay Crowder guarded Giannis more minutes than anybody else. And Torrey Craig just gives us a kind of another guy of that mold. A guy where I'm actually pretty confident. And I mean, that's not to say that Craig's going to be stopping anybody. But he can make the lives of a Kawhi or a LeBron a little bit tougher. And that's a fucking massive pickup. And not only that, I'm a big intensity guy. I'm one of those who, when you have players diving on the floor, when you have guys going for rebounds, who put in that extra effort to put a body on somebody when the ball goes up, I fucking love it. It's one of the reasons why Jay was one of my favorite players early on in this season. And Torrey Craig is that guy to a fucking T. I said this on a recent postgame thread, but it's one of those things where, again, this sounds a little ridiculous. Let me get all the way through before you judge. Torrey Craig fills the position of a prototypical big power forward. He fills the needs that we have for this team that would be accompanied by having a big power forward, in the sense that he's somebody that can not only guard the wings like a LeBron or a Kawhi, but he's somebody I feel extremely comfortable on a back-to-the-basket power forward, maybe even like a Zion, somebody who is a very much a downhill player, but he also rebounds at an extremely high level, especially offensively, when people are putting 2 to 3 bodies on Ayton, who's one of the best offensive rebounders in the entire NBA. And Craig is somebody who can attack the basket. He can be the roll man for a pick and roll. And he's a good shooter. He's not been historically a good shooter, but he's been a very solid, reliable three-point shooter for us. So Torrey Craig, his defensive versatility, his effort on the defensive and offensive glass, and his ability to space the floor and continue to add layers to our offense is just, it cannot be overstated. I look forward to at least 15 minutes of Torrey Craig a night in the playoffs. I think it's been well earned, and I cannot fucking believe that we got this man for free. I can't fucking believe it. It's one of those things where I'm a big believer in an 8-man playoff rotation. I believe 8-man playoff rotations, except maybe outside of the first round, have been historically successful. And I figured our 8-man rotation was Cam Payne, Cam Johnson, and Sarge. But looking at this team now, it's hard for me not to see a 9-man rotation. And I'm okay with that, because Torrey Craig, the way he is playing for us, should be a top 8-man on any other team. And that's true as well for Cam Payne, Cam Johnson, and Dario Saric. Like, we have 9 guys who could all get heavy playoff minutes on any single team in the entire NBA. And so I'm more than comfortable with a 9-man rotation, especially coming from the fact that, do we want a 36-year-old Chris Paul playing 40 minutes a game? Probably not. I mean, in big games, Game 4 or Game 5 where we're down, or obviously a Game 7 or any closeout games, we obviously want Chris Paul to be encroaching on 40 minutes a game. But I don't think that's a good long-term strategy, nor do I think it's something that is maintainable, especially if we want to go on an actual playoff run. So getting into those 9-man rotations, I think it's just going to be extremely, extremely beneficial for us. And I love Torrey Craig, man. I fucking love Torrey Craig. I haven't been on stream since. I just really want to say I fucking love Torrey Craig. The man is all effort. He's not a good dribbler, and he's maybe not the best passer in the entire world. But he knows his role, and he does his role extremely, extremely well. And those types of players are the players that will make the difference on a game-to-game basis in the playoffs. I fucking love the signing. I loved it when we made it, and I love it even more now. So I definitely wanted to touch on Torrey Craig. I thought not having Jay tonight would cause an L. Glad I was wrong. I mean, it's kind of that thing where I was worried. Obviously, Kawhi being out is a little bit more significant than Jay and Dario. But it's kind of what I was touching on earlier, where we only need 2 of our wings to show up. And before, that was Jay, Mikal, and Cam. So in games where one of them was out, we needed a guy maybe like Abdul Nader to step up or Etuan Moore to step up. But now we have Torrey Craig, who has been extremely, extremely consistent for us. Where even if he's not having or hitting his shots, he has that impact on this team that I think is very, very significant. Additionally, for this game, obviously, I didn't see. I saw individual reactions about Ayton tonight, and so I definitely think it's worth touching on Ayton at least a little bit. Where Ayton is, I've been very proud of Ayton this season. I think that he started off the year a little bit slow, especially from an intensity standpoint, and I understand why why fans of this team have been a little bit underwhelmed with him. But it's one of those things where he has showed up in every single way that we have needed, and I get that people wanted him to be a 20-12 guy by this point, but you have to remember that how many teams have you seen that have 3 legitimate dudes who get 20 a night on a regular basis? That's extremely, extremely rare, and I understand the possibility of it is a little bit higher with Chris Paul, who's maybe not the volume scorer, but I mean, we've seen it with Kevin Love, we've seen it with Chris Bosh, and the fact is that Ayton is our Chris Bosh, he is our Kevin Love, and he is filling that role exceedingly well. Obviously, he's not the three-point shooter either of those guys are, so his role is different. But in terms of his standings within the team and kind of the level of expectations from him, he did a fantastic job tonight, especially contesting drives. He did a really good job on Rondo, and there were a handful of plays where he really made it difficult for him and Mikal, made it really difficult for PG. But the thing that I really like to see, there are 2 main things I really like to see out of this game from Ayton. One, which almost sounds a little counterintuitive, but I love the fact that he kept shooting when he was missing. All of those shots were rimming out. It's not like they were bad shots. It's not like he was just missing them horribly. Every single, out of his 5 misses, did he finish with 5 misses or 6 misses? Out of almost every single one of those, they hit the rim 2 or 3 times. They were good shots that just weren't falling tonight. And so many times we've seen Ayton miss a shot or 2 or turn the ball over, and then he goes silent. And that is one of the biggest legitimate criticisms I have seen about Ayton. And tonight, missing shots didn't stop him from trying. It did not lower his intensity, and I fucking love to see it, because we will need that in the playoffs. When things break down, when offenses get tired and defenses turn it to 11, it's going to be tougher to get shots, and we will need Ayton to get those 8-9 shots up a night, even if he's not hitting them well. And so tonight was a fantastic representation of that, and I genuinely did love what I saw out of Ayton. Additionally, one thing that has obviously been a worry with Ayton, which never really made a lot of sense to me, is the fact that teams could go small and essentially force him off the floor, especially the Clippers. And tonight, I think he really did a good job. It was limited minutes, especially in the third quarter, but he wasn't playing well. It's not like a game he was dominating, and then they put in a small ball lineup. He was struggling, and then they put in the small ball lineup to get him off the floor. And what did he do? He turned around and got 2 offensive rebounds in a minute and a half stretch. He made it extremely tough on the glass on both ends. He contested some great shots, and he moved his feet on perimeter defense. And I fucking love that. I fucking love that. And again, I'm all in on Sarge getting minutes in small ball lineups. I'm really a fan of Torrey Craig getting some minutes, especially if we play the Clippers and they run with the Batum at center lineup. But it's nice to know that when they put in Batum at center, it's not time to take Ayton off the floor just yet. And I think that has been an understandable worry that I've seen out of other Suns fans. And I think Ayton did a very solid job tonight, even in a game he was struggling, to show me why keeping him out there on the floor against a small ball team is a fucking good idea. It's a really fucking good idea. He's somebody that's not really going to get beat off the dribble by a guy like Batum. He can contest shots on the perimeter. And if you have a guy like Batum in there, just throw up a shot. Ayton will go fucking get it. Because Batum's not going to out-rebound Ayton, especially not on the offensive glass. So I did love seeing that out of Ayton tonight. Let's see. Mikal showed up really big in the first half. He went quiet for a significant stretch, but the defensive intensity is always there. He was kind of struggling with PG in the first half, especially on drives, but he was hitting shots in the first half. And then in the second half, I really liked how he kind of stepped up in the sense that in almost a counterintuitive way with guys like Paul George who can get to the basket, who can drive very well. The instinct might be to play an extra foot off of them and allow them to shoot over you rather than giving them potential driving lanes around your hips. But with a guy like Paul George, who's an extremely creative ball handler, giving him that extra space is actually not a good idea. Not only can he get a shot off over you, and we've seen this year can hit those shots, but you give Paul George space to create, and he can create. And I think we came out in the first half, and Mikal was giving him maybe a little additional space, and on that space he was attacking and getting by the hips of Mikal and really penalizing the Suns off the drive. However, in the second half, Mikal did not allow him that space and was getting great contests pretty much the entire second half. And I really think that was the difference in the game defensively, especially in the second half. Devin Booker, a bucket. Fucking, I haven't really touched on Devin Booker much this year, or this game rather. And it's one of those things where I'm ecstatic. As a Suns fan, I'm ecstatic. But I'm so happy for Devin, man. I'm so fucking happy for Devin. I fucking pray that the man has at least one massive playoff game, because it is time for him to shed the not a good player, and I think he's mostly done that this season, or the empty stats guy. I think, like I said, I think he's mostly shed that this season. But it's time for the national media to recognize him as a top 15, borderline top 10 player, and he's gonna have the chance to do that. And I cannot fucking wait to see what he does. I love the aggressiveness. I love the fact that these last 2 games, he's come out in the first quarter just looking to get buckets, and I think that's going to be extremely pertinent for our team going forward, especially in the playoffs when offenses break down and defenses turn to 11. We will need guys to go get buckets, and I trust Devin Booker more than most guys in the league. So I understand that maybe he hasn't been taking the best shots, but he's still been playing extremely well. And though he does go cold at times, he gets real fucking hot on others. So I just to wrap this up, I'm just fucking ecstatic, man. I can't believe it. I can't fucking believe we're a playoff team. I can't believe that we secured a playoff spot 10 games left in the season. I can't believe that. We're a game back from the number one seed in the West and the best record in the NBA. I can't fucking believe that now, according to ESPN probability, I think we have like a 44% chance to be a top 2 seed and a 38% chance to be a number 1 seed. So what is that? An 84%, 82% chance of being a top 2 seed? Like, I can't fucking believe it, man. I really can't. I fucking love this team. This is my favorite Suns team in a long, long time. Hell fucking yeah. Hell yeah. I'm like emotional, dude. I'm straight up emotional over the Suns team. Like I said, I've spent countless hours, as I'm sure y'all have, watching horrible Suns teams over the last half decade to a decade. And the tides have turned, man. And it's a fucking beautiful thing. It's a fucking beautiful thing. Shout out to Chris Paul. Shout out to James Jones. Shout out to Monty Williams. And first and foremost, shout out to my favorite player, Devin Booker. I'm looking forward to hopping onto this stream for our later games. You're goddamn right that I will, of course, be trying to hop on a stream for the Jazz game coming up. I appreciate everybody that's giving me love in the post-game comments, especially coming from the fact that I haven't streamed since January. It definitely means a lot, and it's one of those things where I really wanted to kind of get back in the rhythm of streaming, especially kind of coming into the playoffs. And as y'all can tell from the poll, somebody just voted for the first Suns to finish as the first and second seed. That tells you how long it's been since I've streamed. I think we were like 17-8 the last time I streamed. I think we were like the 5th or 6th seed. So it's great to be back on. It's great to see y'all in the fucking comments. It's great to interact with other Suns fans that I know have experienced the exact same shit that I have had to sit through these last few years. It's been fucking painful. It's been fucking rough. But boys, we made it. We fucking made it. I just can't fucking believe it. I can't fucking believe it. Oh my god, we're a playoff team. I like just hearing those words come out my lips. I was gonna end the stream, but I just like just saying those words is fucking. It's beautiful, man. I will not believe that we're a playoff team until I'm seeing us play playoff games. But we're a playoff team. It's undeniable at this point. It is completely undeniable. Every year, I watch 70% of the playoff games. And it's always one of those things where normally by this time in the season, we are well out of the playoff hunt. That our season was ended 10 to 15 games ago. And here we are, man, chasing the 1 seed, a single game back, and we have a chance to take it on Friday. It has been a long time coming, a fucking long time coming, and it's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. Okay, I appreciate y'all hopping on the stream. I really appreciate the interactions and the comments. Like I said, I love talking with y'all, and I'll see y'all on Friday. Go fucking Suns, a goddamn playoff team. Fucking unreal.